Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengal fan on most of the major platforms, and I am joined here as always with Sam Schneider from Primetime Sports Talk, and this is another episode of Jungle Talk.
Woohoo!
Woo day! All right, so Sam, well, tell them where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Buy and Sell You. I write for Primetime Sports Talk. You can find us at primetimesportstalk.com or on Twitter at Talk Primetime.
Perfect. So we haven't done a show in a few weeks, so we thought it was time to get in here. OTAs are over. There hasn't been a whole lot of news, which is good.
It is a good thing.
Do you remember when we were doing the pre-draft videos? I said, this is a season of misinformation. Don't believe everything you hear. And this is a season of no information.
Right.
If you don't believe me, you just look at how much coverage Aaron Rodgers has had over the last month over will he, won't he? And the bottom line is they have nothing else to talk about. So that's why they hyper focus on this stuff. So, but we'll go through. We've got a few Bengal notes. And then we'll talk a little bit about fantasy, maybe some futures and some prop bets you might be looking at, for the upcoming season. So the first thing, the biggest piece of news, obviously, is Adeniji and his torn pectoral muscle. That's right. That's a loss. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and we anybody that knows anything about this injury knows he's not coming back this season. It's the same. Trey Waynes had the problem last year, and if you look at most players of any sport, anytime there's a torn pec, you're talking about 6, 7, 8 months.
I've heard 7
if
months,
not longer.
Yeah, and even 7 months. Right now we're sitting here in month 6. I mean that's the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So you're not going to save a roster spot, and on the guy. Even if he healed faster, I just don't. Yeah, I don't see him playing on the team this year.
Well, and you're talking about a game, in football, and particularly his position on the offensive line, where you're constantly stretching out your arms and absorbing, hits from big defenders and stuff like that. I mean, there's no way that you can get it all healed up and go through rehab and not risk just tearing it again, and then you're really screwed.
So this probably, because he wasn't going to start, but this probably pushes, Fred Johnson or somebody to maybe moving up the roster spot. You think we sign anybody else? I mean, there's veteran free agents out there that are just sitting there.
I don't think we do until probably after training camp has already begun and teams start making their cuts.
Yeah.
If we do, it'll just be a depth somebody. But I do think on the back end, and it's hard to say right now because they haven't really said for sure. We've got so many backups that are prepared to play guard. I'm not saying they're all world backups or anything, but we've got so many guys that are prepared to play guard or tackle that you don't really know yet what the depth chart kind of looks like as far as where everybody's slotting in. I do think this potentially pushes up Deontay Smith, who we drafted in the 4th round this year, who, my knock on him has always been he's a little light for being on the offensive line, but he's 6'5", 294, and Adeniji was only 6'4", 302. So, I mean, that's not, really a different body type. At the very least, this is going to get him more reps in practice.
Yeah, he's the one I was hoping would emerge and really step up. And then I agree with you. We wait for roster cuts because you're going to see some quality people who are in football shape because they were, trying to make another team. And that's when you can pick up some quality veterans and add some depth. So, but it was unfortunate. You don't like to lose anybody. I mean, we sit around in this season and we say, well, 2 things we don't want to hear: injury reports. And then the other thing we don't want to hear is you getting into trouble, because you sit there and you go, okay, because they're not, it's OTAs, and what we don't want to hear is, you're arrested, your DUIs, stuff like that. So it's almost no news is good news. We don't hear injuries. And but the OTAs look like they've been going great. I mean, we were talking about this earlier that, Zach ended them early.
Yeah, Zach gave him the last couple of days off. He said, he was really happy with what he had seen and thought that everybody, deserved to cut out early, which, when you're a young coach like that, and your back's kind of against the wall, then he must really feel good if he's willing to send everybody home early, because a lot of other guys would be like, no, man, we're staying here.
Right.
so that's a good feeling. There have been some really great sound bites there. It's the usual stuff. Everybody looks amazing.
Right.
Everybody's gonna have we're gonna have the best season ever and go undefeated. But there's still been some fun stuff too. You guys can Google. They had Jamar Chase mic'd up for one of the last practices, which was fun. Nothing earth shattering or anything, but listening to guys talk about each other. Callahan and Zach Taylor both had really great things to say about T. Higgins. They said he put on a little more weight.
Right.
He obviously worked his butt off during the off season. And then you got, Burrow was asked in one of his press conferences, what do you think about having your buddy Jamar Chase here, and what does he bring to the team? And Joe was like, nobody gives him credit for being as smart a football player as he is.
Right.
And you love to hear a quarterback saying that about his wide receiver a lot. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the standard sound bites, but still very encouraging.
Yeah, well, and I've heard that he's really grasped the playbook quickly, and he's a quick learner, and all this stuff's real positive. I got to say, and I think I might have said this in the last video, Zach's press conferences have been much better. I mean, he's getting more specific questions. He's actually giving you specifics. I bashed him a lot last year because I said it was the always, the rah, nothing. So he's actually had better pressers this year,
Yeah, and I think some of that maybe comes with his comfort level too. You know what I mean? Like, even if he saw things that he really liked last year, do I think he would have sent everybody home early? No, I really don't. Not because, they didn't do well, but just, the younger you are in this league as a coach, and I mean, he's 35 years old?
Something like that.
The pressure's on from the first time you get there. And then all of a sudden you get around year 3 and you're like, wait a minute, I'm the coach. So, I can have, like you said, more specific pressers. I can be a little more open or a little more closed if I want to.
Right.
If I want to send everybody home, I can send everybody home.
Right. Yeah. No, it's been a positive offseason. Like I said, that's really our only significant injury. And we haven't had, knock on wood, I'm looking for something to knock on, but and none of the bad stuff. You're reading on other guys with the DUI and this stuff, and you're like, that's the last thing we need. So
right. Well, and then you've got all the side hubbub with vaccinations and stuff that you and I were talking about. And Joe Mixon came out and said, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, said, get vaccinated or don't get vaccinated. I respect, your right to choose. But then you got guys like Cole Beasley that come out and, like, I suppose I get that you have the right to choose. You do. You have the right to choose.
Right.
If he would have just said, I have the right to choose and I'm not doing it, I'd have been better about it. But he came out and sounded like a knucklehead.
Right.
And said that the odds of me getting into this league and playing for 10 years were a long shot, and it'd be a long shot for me to do this or that. So I'll take my chance.
Two completely.
And I'm like, that's not how math works.
Yeah, no, that's an argument, a fallacious example. If you ever took a debate class, those are two completely different things. Polio was basically eradicated for 50 years, and we now have cases of it coming back because people have said, oh, I don't need the vaccine, or I don't trust it, or whatever. And this was a debilitating disease. I mean, when my mom was growing up, she always told me when she was a kid, her parents wouldn't let her go into crowds because, I mean, literally you have crippled people from polio. And to bring the disease back, mumps, measles, and polio, because you think you can go without vaccines, I think you're nuts. But
yeah. And like we said, it's to each their own. But I was just kind of piggybacking on the whole, this is other things you don't want to hear about. If there are guys on our team that didn't want to do it, that's their prerogative. I'm just glad that they're not stepping out in the news and hoorah in the fact that they didn't do it, like Cole Beasley.
No. And the league has definitely, I mean, you could see the position of the league. They are very punitive if you don't have the vaccination. I mean, if you're in close contact with somebody who test positive and you are vaccinated, there's no quarantine. Where if you're not, it's 14 days. So,
Right.
I mean, there's significant advantages. Also, I think if you're vaccinated, you're only tested every 2 weeks. I mean, there's a lot of things. So,
Well, and there's certain things with like the size of meetings you can have,
right,
the number of people you can have in a room at certain times, and it's not even just the non-vaccinated can't be in there. It's it affects everyone. Well, now instead of being allowed to have 10 people in this meeting, it doesn't matter who is and who is not vaccinated. If somebody is not, now you can only have 5 people in there.
right,
Little things like that, which, that's why the league really wants everybody to do it. So they're, putting these things in case. And once again, I'm not here to bandwagon anybody or say everybody has to get vaccinated. It's their prerogative.
right.
But it's just, to be perfectly frank, I just can't wait till we don't have to hear about it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
every day there's a tweet about somebody saying this or that and the other, and then who knows how long before someone says, "Well, we couldn't have a full meeting because so and so is
right. Well, they're
screwed
definitely
everything
doing the
up."
peer pressure. They're trying
Yeah,
to do the code red to try to get you to, to
yeah, I
vaccinate.
do
But
know. I do have a friend that that has some connections inside the organization. This isn't like anything special to say. It's not surprising at all, but they did have, I think early in the OTAs, they had doctors come in there specifically to vaccinate people on the team and named off a couple, just a couple players. And I was like, do you mean like everybody got the vaccine? And he was like, I don't know. I have no idea if
right.
everybody got it or not. But the team did bring in people and say, if you're one of the people that hasn't gotten it, that wants it, then go for it. And we talked about, the fact that Sewell, after he got drafted to Detroit, he didn't get one, and look at him. He missed the beginning
Right.
of OTAs. He missed the beginning of
Right.
OTAs.
No, listen, you have Rom who just in the last major golf tournament couldn't finish the tournament. And they
Mhm.
estimate that cost him about 1.5 million.
Yeah.
And it's like and he even said now, my bad, because he had, I think, the first shot but hadn't had the second, or he had the second but it hadn't gone the 2 weeks after. Whatever it was, he was in the part to where he tested positive, and maybe it's a false positive, but because you weren't fully vaccinated, PGA, you're gone. They're not going to risk
Right.
the rest of the tournament. So, and you look at Chris Paul right now in the Suns. I don't know whether he was or wasn't, but his status is unknown right now.
Yeah.
Fortunately, his series, they're not ready to play. But if he's not available for the West Championship, that's that he's gotten them to where they are.
Yep.
So how
Well, I
Chris
mean,
Paul is going to be used.
at the end of the day, I suppose everybody's got their reasons one way or another. But if somebody told me I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars to do your dream job, I'd be
Right.
like, where do you want to stick it and how many
Right.
times?
Well, you got a lot of people who make a lot less money who have done it for work, whether you're
Right.
a healthcare worker or a teacher or whatever. You don't have a choice. If
Right.
you're a teacher, you're not in the classroom. So if you want to do your job, so there's a lot of people who have a lot less at stake who have taken
Right.
it. And the sample size, I heard somebody on Twitter complaining about it's experimental. We've got a sample size that's huge.
It's pretty significant at this point compared
California's
to
at 50%.
right. I mean, we're talking about a small sample size being 6 games played in a year in a sport.
Right.
I think the sample size is a little bigger than that, but
No, but I'm saying the vaccinations. You have
right.
millions of tens of millions.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
we're talking about
a game. We're used to small sample sizes. I think this is a pretty big sample.
Yeah, I don't think you can use the word experimental anymore. That's my thing. So, all right, well, let's get off vaccinations. OTAs went well. Let's talk about some guys you might like for for fantasy football.
Sure. I think, and I'm guessing you'd agree with this. The defense is still a question mark. We got a lot of guys who haven't played together. It's no secret that we've signed good players. But unless you're in an IDP league, which I think you are.
Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to let you cover the defensive team in itself, but I'll talk about that because it's completely different if you're into individual defensive players. But,
yeah, I just at this point, well, we'll just start with defense then, and I'll just make it real easy. If you're not in an IDP league, unless they just come out guns blazing at the beginning of the season, you're probably not going to draft the Bengals defense anyway.
No.
So just let them sit there. And if they turn out to be good, or you want to plug them in 1 week against, Chicago or something like that, then go for it. But when you're talking about team defense, it's not like, unless you're in like a 20, 30 team league, nobody's scrambling to grab the
Well,
Bengals
yeah,
because it's just too much of an unknown.
You would take the Bengals if it was versus starting nobody, because you still have the chance for a shutout or something like that. But
of course,
now for individual defensive, anybody who's in a individual defensive league, and I'm in a league that's been together for over 20 years. It's on steroids. We have our own private website. I mean, it's amazing. We do individual defensive guys, 5 defensive linemen, 5 linebackers, 5 DBs. You want to stay away from corners. You like safeties more because they get more tackles, and they're also in coverage. But you're better off. What's weird is if you have a team that's kind of an average defense, you're really better off having the linebackers there because they're on the field more and there's more tackles. When you had the Baltimore defense in its heyday, right, with Ray Lewis and all that, if you didn't have Ray Lewis, you didn't want anybody else on the team. First of all, there'd be 30 tackles distributed, and Ray Lewis on the linebacking core would have 15 of them. So, that's unless you have him. The other thing, I feasted. I had Brian Simmons for years on my fantasy team as an IDP, and he was a steady scorer. Bengal defense, I have Jesse Bates. He was the number 2 safety in our league. So there are certain positions. Yeah. Carlos Dunlap was another great one for me. I have him now in Seattle. I'm probably going to replace him this year because he's going to be rotated in. But when he was in his heyday, that was great. And you want to stick with ends. You don't want nose tackles. They just don't get the tackles and sacks. Even if you have Geno in his prime, he's not going to put up the same numbers as, Mathis or somebody who was coming around the edge. So on individual defensive guys, there are some gems. I'll be looking. I probably won't be, because I have Bates. I don't like to have multiple guys on the same team. But Bates, like I said, number 2 safety in our league based on our scoring last year. He's great. Hubbard was another one that in his rookie year was a big scorer. So a lot of times getting the guy who's the second end is a great way to go because the other one's drawing so much attention that your guy gets a lot of action. That's where Hubbard was with Dunlap on the other side. Hubbard got a lot of his, and he had a remember against Miami, he had that fumble return for a touchdown.
Right.
So, Hubbard is a good one. So that's just for you guys in the IDP leagues. That's what you look at.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. So far, Taylor and Anarumo have done a lot of rotating on that line.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see what sort of fantasy impact some of these guys can make. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson's going to be out there probably every down.
Right.
Hubbard, I'm not so sure about when you just drafted Asai and you've got the other rookie. And Hubbard just had a down year and only 2 sacks last year.
Right.
But so it's going to be interesting to see how the rotation works out to see if those guys can provide, the max value for wherever that you can take them in a fantasy draft. You know what I mean? They're not going to be one of the first guys off the board, but could certainly provide you with a nice surprise later on that you normally would have.
Yeah.
I'll pop over to the offense real quick, and it'll come as no surprise to anybody to say that, the Bengals offense is going to fly off the board.
Right.
In redraft leagues. Most of them are already gone in dynasty, with the exception of the tight ends, because nobody really knows what's going on there. They might be, if you're drafting, you can probably get Uzama or Sample, even Thaddeus Moss. If he makes a team, I'm still not sure if he does.
Yeah.
You'll still be able to get those guys. Like, you can wait and take them as like your second tight end way late in the draft, if not off waivers afterwards.
I was going to say, pick them up on waivers after the season starts. I'm not sold on any of our tight ends. I probably wouldn't go there for any of them. And I picked up like OJ Howard to see where he was, in the offseason. The draft for me always starts at the end of last season, because in our league, we allow you to use your free agents picks up to the end of the league year, which is usually right around March 1st. So I go through and I see who was injured and I start grabbing all those guys. I go through and I see, I make notes throughout the season. I don't have a life, so that's what I spend my time
doing. Right. Well, sure.
I did my draft before. I already picked up like 4 free agents at the end of the year, trying to see where they are. I also like to pick up guys who I think, because I'm in a dynasty league, we keep our rosters. I pick up guys who are in contracts and maybe on new teams. So
Right.
like we had, the guy in Green Bay who's now on another team who was the backup to their guy. I can't remember, Aaron Jones.
Right.
Aaron Jones, but the Green Bay. But if you pick up guys like that,
Yeah,
that wind up being starters.
Jamal
Jamal
Williams.
Williams,
Talking
yeah.
about. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm in a couple dynasty leagues as well, and it's the same deal. There's no off season in dynasty.
no,
You're still picking up and putting down, and the next thing you know, it's time to draft rookies, and then you're still picking up and putting down after that. So, I mean, I got notifications for a whole ton of moves that were made yesterday, and a lot of it's just kind of jostling for position at this point and throwing darts at a board. But like you said, right after the season ended, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on,
Yeah.
and right after the rookie drafts end, there's a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
Obviously, in redraft leagues, right now Burrow is his collective ADP, I think, over like five sites is what I used as the collective. He's going off the board as quarterback number 11. I think he certainly finishes higher than that, assuming
I have Burrow as a
season.
top 10 in my brain. I definitely think this is going to be an explosive offense. I'm definitely in my dynasty league. I'm looking at Jamar Chase as he could be my first pick off the board.
Well, and right now, and the interesting thing is you've got, let's see, Higgins is coming off the board as wide receiver 27. That's
Right.
the 68th player overall. That's actually pretty high. You've got Boyd right behind him at wide receiver 30, and overall 78th off the board.
Right.
That's pretty good. Then you got Jamar Chase. Overall, his collective ADP is 99th off the board, not wide receivers, but across the league.
Right.
Quarterbacks, running backs, everybody. But he's wide receiver 42, which is significantly further down, the chart than Higgins and Boyd. So Chase is one of those guys. I mean, if you believe in that chemistry he's got with Burrow, where, if you can be picking them up in the later rounds, you're going to consider yourself very, very lucky. Whereas dynasty leagues, obviously, he already came off the board.
Oh, yeah. Dynasty leagues. If you haven't ever been in a dynasty league, the draft looks a lot like the NFL draft because, Burrow's already on a team. Someone drafted him, last year. I didn't get Burrow I have Patrick Mahomes, who I picked up years ago, as a rookie and sat on him for a year because I loved him so much in college. But I have Tua as my developmental. And then I might look for somebody else. We have the guy with Deshaun Watson and everybody was saying, oh, you're worried. And he's like, no, he drafted Herbert last year. That's the backup.
Right.
So
Right.
he's sitting there. And he could be looking at, at another quarterback this year. So Zach Wilson, I would throw into my second round if he's still there. But your draft looks totally different. So I think I won our Super Bowl last year. So I'm drafting, I think we have 10 teams. I'm drafting 8 or 9, and I'm looking at Jamar Chase. If he's there, I'm absolutely going to add him because I have Mixon. I don't have a wide receiver on the Bengals. So,
I can't imagine he would be there at eighth or ninth in the rookie draft, but maybe.
But the quarterbacks, we've got a lot of guys who have aging quarterbacks. The guy who has Matt Ryan is going to be looking to pick up one of the young QBs. And there's, 3 or 4 viable QBs. Justin Fields is going to be starting this year. I mean, at some point, Andy Dalton's not keeping that job. So, if you have your starter as Matt Ryan and you're looking at, the person to maybe give you a second half push and be there next year, then you're looking at, at Fields, you're looking at Zach Wilson, you're looking at these guys. You're looking at Mac Jones.
The other thing I wanted to mention, I'll go back to redraft here again. So all those guys, Mixon is he's running back 14.
Right.
He's coming off the board 18th overall. So he's going in the second round in pretty much every league. And, if you believe that this is the year he's going to play every game, then he's top 8 pick. You know what I mean? The only reason he's ranked as running back 14 is because he can't stay on the field.
Right.
Well, actually, I take that back. 1 year he played all 16, started 15.
That was the year where Pollock was our coach and he led the league in rushing.
It was, that was, no, it was the year after. The year before, I think he started 13 games because he missed some.
Yeah, he missed a few,
games,
but he led the league in
still
rushing.
still had 1168 to lead the AFC, and the next season he had 1137 in 16 games. But if you think he's going to play every down, I mean, it's okay to take him. You're not a homer if you take him in the first round, but you got to really believe that he's going to play every down before you take him over some of these other guys. The only other one I wanted to mention, and this is an intriguing one, and I know a lot of people play in leagues where they want to get rid of the kicker entirely. And I feel your pain, although I think the kickers are way more valuable than people give them credit for.
Right.
But because nobody knows for sure yet if McPherson is going to be our kicker, his average draft position right now is 28th of 32.
Right. No.
And it might actually be more like 28th of 34.
Yeah.
There's probably a couple other backups that are being taken first. But when you've got an offense this explosive with all these playmakers, if they're healthy, that's the kicker you want. Like, that's the guy you want, the guy that's just going to go down there. You can't get in the end zone every time.
No.
So, but an explosive offense will get you close enough to kick a field goal almost every time.
Right.
So I'm telling you, man, look out if he gets the job, which I assume he will. Zach has already said right now the plan is he will be our kicker.
When they let Fat Randy go, he's our kicker.
Yeah.
We made the mistake. We already made the mistake with Jake Elliott. We should have kept him. Bullock should have not been our kicker. We wouldn't be even having this conversation. We'd be saying, yeah, Jake Elliott's like, the 10th or 15th kicker overall. But we're not making that mistake again. We spent a draft pick on a kicker. He's a good kicker.
Hope not. I hope not.
No, it's not. I have enough agony watching him make Jake Elliott. When Randy Bullock was missing his 50-yarders, watching Elliott pump 50-yarders through to win games. And I'm like, and he's not on our team.
Yeah. Well, as long as Siebert doesn't come through in training camp and hit like 24 straight field goals.
They brought him in as just just to appear as a competition and motivate their rookie. But they didn't spend a draft pick on Siebert. It's going to be our guy. Right. So, but
yeah, and the only other thing I'll say is as far as backups on the offense, it's going to be if a guy goes down, I think.
Well, Mixon's my main guy. Okay. Right. But our format, we can do a run and shoot. You can do a wishbone. You need to start one at every position, but you can start 3 running backs and 1 wide receiver. You could start 3 wide receiver, 1 running back. So I rode the season out last year on James Robinson, who was a free agent acquisition for me. But I had Mixon, and what I did was I picked up Gio. So if Mixon was out, because that the way our offense is set up, if Mixon's down, Gio's going to get the 25 carries and whatnot. Right. So then that might be different if Puka Williams makes the team, or we can get into position battles. But I really think that you take
that's for closer to training camp, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, because we do have running back, and we'll cover this in our next episode when training camp's there. But running back is one of the more interesting battles, because we do have undrafted free agents, and you have Captain America. So
that's right. You got Captain America back there.
So
yeah, that'll be interesting to see, and we'll definitely have to talk about those. And I also, one of my Mark, you and I were talking about, I did my second true and false session for the Cincinnati Bengals for prime time. Came out I think a week ago today. I'll put it in the comments for anybody that wants to look.
I'll retweet it. You can check at Buy and Sell You on Twitter. Yeah. You'll be able to check my Twitter feed, or you can Sam will put it in the comments. But you can read both of Sam's articles; are really good on that. So
yeah, but one of the ones I mentioned in there was a very simple one. I try to pick true and falses that could go either way, and one of them was just true or false. The Bengals can win with the current tight end core. Is that true or is that false? I don't want to spoil it for you. But silly me thinking I'd have a really simple answer. I ended up with about 800 words about our tight ends. I almost started boring myself. I was like, good Lord. Because we've got like 7 guys on the roster right now. Which is absurd.
I do think Moss makes the team only because he was so clutch. You look at a guy like Evan Ingram on the Giants, and while he's got better, ball skills and route running, how many times did the Giants lose games because the ball bounced right off his hands?
Right.
Moss caught everything that Burrow threw him at LSU. He caught everything.
His route running and separation leave a lot to be desired, but his hands they're sticky tack.
Right.
You can't. He can't. If it hits him in the hands, he's going to catch it.
Right.
But I talk ad nauseum about him and why I do or do not think he'll make the team.
Right.
In that article as well. So make sure to check that out.
Okay. That's great. And any other last minute players you want to mention? No, I love our offense. I think Boyd's viable. I mean, I love all of our skill position guys. I love Mixon. I love Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. I think, and Burrow. Obviously, I see Burrow as a top 10 guy. I think this is going to resemble the Air Coryell for those of you who remember back that far. Some of you might not be old enough to remember the Dan Fouts Charger days, but man, they had some, 38, 35 games, but
right.
There wasn't the fantasy football back then, but man, that was those games that's some numbers, and I really think we could have that. That type of offense.
Yeah, I think on both sides of the ball, whether we're talking about fantasy or real life, I think everybody agrees here that we have just an unbelievably talented roster. And so the question now is just getting them all to play together. And in order to have that offense like that, we got to everybody hit on all cylinders and kind of connect. And that'll be up to the coaches in real life, and it'll be up to us to know when to start them in fantasy.
Yeah, well, yeah. The like I said, this is going to be an exciting team. I didn't understand all the crowing about signing Julio Jones. If we wanted an aging veteran wide receiver, we would have kept AJ at a cheaper price. And I didn't want to keep AJ. So I'm just saying, I didn't understand everybody saying, we need Julio Jones. No, we don't. I would rather see us get another offensive lineman. I'd rather see us get a linebacker.
Mark,
Julio Jones did not need to be on our team. So
Mark, when will you learn?
Bengals want everybody.
Fans want to sign everybody. Everybody.
Yeah. So I just I thought that was funny.
So you know what? I'll say one other thing. As long as you were talking about the wide receivers, because I made a note of it. This is also in that article. The last time a team had 3 wide receivers go over 1,000 yards, 3 was the Kurt Warner-led Cardinals of 2008. Believe it or not.
Right. Okay.
When it was Fitzgerald, Bolden, and Steve Preston.
Okay.
Go Blue. Sorry, guys. But I wanted to mention that I think we do that this year, and I think and we do it because we've got a 17th game, and so I don't think we'll be the only ones to do it. But to put it in perspective, Higgins, Boyd, and Chase, they would need to each average 58.9 yards a game in order to all get over 1,000.
That's absolutely.
I mean,
a high scoring team like that, that's nothing.
That's like 2 catches for Chase.
No. I would love to see what the Wes Chandler, Charlie Joyner, Kellen Winslow for Fowler, what kind of numbers those guys were, in terms of fantasy, because that was that kind of offense where, they'd score 42 points and lose the game. But we should of points being awarded. So
we should in one of these videos when we get closer to training camp, or maybe even before that, Mark, we should talk about how this 17th game is going to affect records, because a lot of records are going straight down.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them.
Right. So, that transitions us to one comment I want to throw out there is that, Bengal Jim is trying to, I guess, what is it called? Bengals to the Hall. He's trying to push to get and we both talked about this in the last video. My guys would be the 2 Kens. And this goes back to stats. When you look at like Ken Riley's numbers, I mean, he's like 4th or 5th on the all-time interception. He did it when they didn't throw the ball a lot, and he did it when it was a 14-game season.
Right.
And that's why his numbers, not having in the Hall, is such disrespect, because to have him on the list and be ahead of guys like Charles Woodson, who's going into the Hall, and Rod Woodson, who either might be just ahead of him or just below him. I mean, it was and did it at a time when they threw the ball a lot. Those stats But I do want to mention that support Bengal Jim's push because we've got to get more Bengals in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you know what, Mark? I'll rattle off a couple details real quick for anybody that's interested because it's this Saturday.
Okay,
and
good.
It's not too late for anybody that wants to actually go. It's called Jungle to the Hall.
There it is.
Okay. They're doing like 10:30 to 1 o'clock. They're going to the high school where Paul Brown originally coached.
Okay.
Have one of the best high school teams of all time, which happens to be on Paul Brown Drive and has a Paul Brown statue up. I mean, the whole nine.
How appropriate.
And they've got field access to take pictures and all that kind of stuff. And then there is local and national media doing a presser in Canton at the Hall of Fame. There's going to be talks from a whole bunch of local Bengals. The effort is to get guys like Kenny Anderson, Kenny Riley, Willie Anderson into the Hall of Fame. I know Willie for sure is going to be there. I assume Ken Anderson is as well. I don't know if Kenny Riley, maybe he'll have some family there since he's since passed on.
I crowed for years about doing it while the guy was still alive.
Yeah. But so they've got like a 1:30 presser at the place. There's they're doing the Hall of Fame put on a special Anthony Munoz exhibit for all these Bengal fans that show up. They're encouraging fans to like bring grippos for all of you that are from Cincinnati and things like that. So it's petitioning to get these guys in. It sounds like a really, really, really great time. There's a whole bunch of people taking road trips. And once again, I'll put in the comments a connect to Bengal Jim's Facebook page, which has all the details. It is not too late to register to go. It's not expensive to do so. There's like a meet and greet. People are getting together for drinks and food the night before and the night of and things like that. It's just it's really cool to see all these people going up to try to get our guys in, and they will be there, I think, like a week before 9 of the senior Hall of Fame voters show up. So they're hoping to just get some attention and say, man, stop holding these guys back just because they wore orange and black.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. No. And there's an article you could check my Twitter feed that Mel Blount, former Steeler, actually came out and said Kenny Riley belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So you've got guys who were competitors, but they respect each other even from division rivals like that. I was really happy to see Mel Blount step up and say that. So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely. So support the Bengal Gym effort there. We need to get more of these guys in. The last thing we want to talk about, and we'll do it really briefly, was just some of the props. I mean, I really like the over 6.5 for the Bengals. I think they hit that. That's one, obviously.
Oh, I forgot we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, I like the
over 6.5 wins, right?
Right, I like that, and that's the one I put a big number on. But then I take, I do this every year, and obviously some years I made money with the 5 years in a row we made the playoffs. But I take $100, I spread it, on the AFC North, the AFC, and the Super Bowl. We're talking like a $12 bet, a $63 bet, and a $25 bet. But they're each one to win more than 1,000 because we're 100 to 1 for the Super Bowl and
right.
Whatnot. So
and it's
50 to 1 for the AFC. So you throw $10 on that, just it's a $500 bet.
And it's one of those things every year where you feel like you're kind of being unrealistic. You know what I mean? Like what are really the chances? But like you said, if you spread it out over those 3 bets, well, if you win the Super Bowl, you win all 3 of them.
Right.
First of all, and you're double. I mean, besides the fact that you'll be crying if we won the Super Bowl, you'll also be like,
yeah.
Oh wait, also I put some money down, and when you put the money down that early, it's almost like you forget. It's $100. You forget about it.
Well,
and next thing you know, and you consider it gone, and then next thing you know, if you hit something, you got it. There's a whole bunch of them out there, but most of them are really general right now. You've got, Joe Burrow's a long shot to win MVP and a long shot for offensive play in the year. Chase is a really big long shot for offensive rookie of the year. I mean, we're talking Chase is plus 1,100 on a $100 bet. Okay. Burrow's plus $5,000 for the MVP.
Right.
He's only plus 600 for comeback player of the year, which is certainly a possibility, and that's a bet that I would consider. Yeah. The only problem I have with that is every year, it's not just guys that are injured; it's also guys that have bad seasons.
Right.
So you're talking about he's going to be up against guys like Saquon Barkley, Run CMC,
Right.
Kenny Galladay. Um, I mean, what happens if Jameis Winston gets starting quarterback job?
Well, he's going to get the starting
It's
job, but what if if he gets
it's
the
not
Saints to the playoffs? Yeah.
exactly. So you've got, the only problem with those the odds seem great, but you've got all this competition. I probably will not do the 6.5 wins because the odds just don't. It's just not worth it to me. You know what I mean?
I like it also.
It's basically
kicker
$100 bet to win $100. I don't. That doesn't really do much for me. But my favorite bet, however, that I will do is Joe Burrow over 4250 pass yards
I
in
like
17
that.
games.
I
I think
like
that's a slam dunk.
Right. I like that. To me, the over 6.5 is a slam dunk if we stay healthy. Obviously, it's always about staying healthy.
Of
But
course.
I just think, I just really feel like this is at least an 8, 9, 10 win team. I really,
Right.
personnel wise, if we stay healthy, there's no reason why we can't do that. We're under the radar. Everybody figures we're going to finish last in the division. So there's no pressure in terms of that. And here's the kicker, the 17th game.
Right.
The 6.5 last year was too rich. The 6.5 this year with the better team and all that, and the off season that we've had. And once again, I'm going to bang this drum a lot. Bring in Pollock back. I really think the running game is going to be better. The pass protection is going to be better. He was able to make hay with Bobby Hart and some of these guys
Right.
that Turner was not able to. So I truly believe he was our best offseason signing.
Yeah,
Riley was
I agree
one.
with you.
Riley as the player was our top one, and I
Yeah.
do think that Pollock was our best acquisition. I pointed that out to somebody the other day who's a big Giants fan, and he was like, "God, I didn't even think about that." About looking at coaches that you brought in that could change your locker room.
I keep writing in every article too, because you and I talk about it all the time.
I'm telling you,
You'll see when the people look at that true and false article, you'll see I mentioned it again in there too.
Yeah.
So I agree with you completely. In Frank Pollock, we trust, right?
In Frank Pollock, we trust. So, all right. Well, that's everything we're going to cover on this one. We've got other things coming up. Training camps coming up. We'll get another video out. Please, if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. That's all we ask. Check out Sam's true and false articles on Primetime Sports Talk. And with that, I'm going to say, hoo day, everybody.
Hoo day.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.